Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie.
I'm Cherrie.
Welcome to the With Chinese Characteristics podcast. So normally we do episodes where we talk about things with Chinese characteristics and Cherrie researches them. She's Chinese and says this to me, an American. But we wanted to talk about WeChat because it is in the news. It's getting banned sort of on Sunday. And I think that it has been overshadowed by what's happening to TikTok. And I think that most Americans probably basically don't even know what WeChat is. And I feel like lumping them together is almost kind of strange because you could argue what the actual involvement the Chinese government has with TikTok, right? How closely the two things are linked. But it's sort of like banning TikTok and WeChat is almost like banning McDonald's and the CIA, right? You know what I mean? Like one of them is just so much more a state apparatus than the other.
Yeah.
Right? And
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. And so we wanted to talk about what WeChat is, how it got created, and what the kind of pros and cons of it are, and what the impact of the ban's going to be.
I think most Americans now at least know sort of what TikTok is. Mm-hmm. And WeChat, even though you might have heard of it, what it does, most Americans don't have this app installed. So there's, obviously TikTok is taking front seat in the media coverage.
Yes.
Versus to WeChat. But WeChat is a much bigger empire.
Yes.
Than what TikTok is.
Right. So Cherrie, what's your experience with WeChat? Actual Chinese person.
That should be my on my name cards.
Yeah, on your business
a real
card.
Actual Chinese person.
Yes.
Because there's so few of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not saying anyone else is not a real actual Chinese person. Just
we
saying.
All are. Yeah.
Just saying that Cherrie is.
Well, my experience with WeChat, I interacted with it on a daily basis. I talked to my family and friends back in China using the app. I talked to a great number of people, Chinese people that I know in the U.S. and other countries, using this program as well.
WeChat is the largest standalone mobile app in the world. Almost probably all 1.4 billion Chinese people have it installed. What percentage would you say?
Well, every Chinese smartphone user, which is most Chinese people who, unless you live in a very rural area, if you're connected to the internet,
you're probably going to have WeChat.
You're going to have WeChat.
Okay. And what is WeChat, Cherrie? What does it do?
Well, let me put it this way. So for the American audiences, because if you use WeChat, you already know what it is. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have it, it's a chat program to begin with. Mm-hmm. So it's like your Zoom or your Skype. Or your, I don't know, people
AOL.
Today don't use Kiosk. Your
AOL
AOL
Instant Messenger.
Your Facebook Messenger, right?
Yeah.
So it's that. And then imagine that it's connected to your bank account and it has a payment portal for everything that you interact with every day. So you can use it to get your Uber. You can use it to order your takeout from any restaurants that are around you. And then you use it to pay your electricity and water bill. Mm-hmm. And you get your RSS feeds from it. You read blogs on it, or you follow public entities on it. Mm-hmm. And it's also an app store where, imagine what you download apps from the Apple app store.
Okay.
WeChat has that as well.
So
it's very popular.
If you have a mobile phone in China, if you interact with any sort of aspects of Chinese businesses or commerce or the government, you need to have a WeChat account.
You need to have a WeChat account. Also, to interact with your friends, your family, your work partners. I'm sorry. Let me add that.
Yeah.
WeChat also basically functions like email in a business sense. So, like, we get emails from clients, from your boss, from your, from your managers. In China, it's all done through WeChat. It's a WeChat message that you get from your clients, from your boss, from your colleague.
As you said, WeChat started off as a kind of a basic sort of chat messaging program, competitor to things like what's the Chinese QQ, and it very rapidly morphed into something huge.
Yeah.
And what would you say was the kind of the big adoption point for when WeChat kind of took over from all these other chat programs?
Yeah, it wasn't that on day one, like WeChat was the number one chat program in China, but it was competitive when it started. And different from other chat programs in China back in the days. WeChat, riding on this wave of smartphones and iPhones really coming out, is, I think, one of the first apps who goes, oh, this is going to be a mobile app through and through.
People assume that every country is going to follow along the same path as every other country, like it's a tech tree in a video game. In China, personal computers still to this day are fairly rare.
Yeah.
Compared to in the US.
Not everyone has a personal computer.
Yes.
But everyone has a smartphone.
So people went straight from essentially having nothing to having smartphones.
Yeah.
And so WeChat, you're saying, capitalized on that.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And it obviously focused on smartphone users. And for the first couple of years, it was competing with QQ and several other, maybe text message and all that. But in 2014, it came out with a red envelope feature. So the red envelopes is a Chinese tradition, long Chinese tradition where most of the time during Chinese New Year, senior members of the family would give cash wrapped in a red envelope to junior members of the family, to the grandchildren.
It's usually from older to younger, right?
From older generation to the younger. So your parents usually don't give you red envelope, but you would get it from your get it from your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, your older cousins sometimes. So it's a long-standing Chinese tradition. And 2014, during the Chinese New Year, WeChat came out with this virtual red envelope feature. And it sort of blew up from there. Okay.
And this would be like, it's sort of a money transfer program.
Yeah.
But what was it about it that made it be so popular, right? Because, there's ways to send money in China. So what was so special about what WeChat was doing?
Yeah. So first, I think in order to promote the red envelope feature, it didn't require you to actually have money.
Okay.
WeChat would sort of sometimes give you free money and it would not be for the large amount. It'll give you $2 and you could send it to people. And once the people get that money, they need to link a bank account to get that money, right? Which means basically everyone who has a WeChat account have access to this red envelope feature to begin with. So there's no barrier of entry.
Okay.
And then it was honestly, not that I'm trying to promote WeChat or anything, but the red envelope feature was very successful because it was very well designed and it was very easy to use. It's got a good graphics, like a cute red envelope. And it's sort of a cultural tradition every Chinese person understands and practices regularly. It captured that emotion, I think, and that interaction between people.
Because China, obviously, sort of like in the US, people are more spread out today in China, or in 2014, than they were traditionally.
Yeah.
So, you might not be able to give somebody a red envelope in person.
Yeah, now you can give it to anyone. And the red envelope sort of developed from just, grandparents giving it to their grandchildren.
Yeah.
WeChat had made it so that your boss can give you a red envelope.
Okay.
And you would give your friend an envelope. You would, it's sort of a much more casual thing now, in a good way. Does that make sense? It's it's fun. You want to participate in this group activity that everyone's doing. Another reason I think the red envelope feature really took off and brought on so many users and brought, what do you call it, the sticky rate. It made the app a lot more interactive and everyone just can't wait to go back to use it. The red envelope tradition obviously is a one-on-one situation. WeChat had made it so that you could send red envelopes to a chat group of several people. And anyone in that chat group can race to click on it. And once they clicked on it, they get the money.
So they kind of turned it into a game, and you had to be constantly watching these chat groups.
You want to be on alert for it.
So you're there to click it, right? Which means you're spending more time in the app, you're having more engagement.
Yes, and sometimes it will be. You could set it to be randomized, so there's a gambling sort of the thrill for it.
Yeah.
And the red envelopes traditionally it's for a good amount of money because you get it once a year from your grandparents, right? You would get it maybe, equivalent $50, $100. Yeah. But a lot of the envelopes sent through WeChat are for the amount of $1, $5. So you could send a lot more of it. They introduced the red envelope. That feature had brought just a significant amount of growth of WeChat users.
Yeah, because obviously if somebody sends you money in a red envelope, you're going to install the app or whatever, to get your money out, right?
Yeah. And then WeChat also did something else, which is voice messages. Because I know you always see me sending voice messages back and forth with my parents. And you think that's weird?
Well, that's an idiosyncrasy I think, and I don't know if it's a Chinese cultural thing. Maybe we can discuss this in a second, or it's a Chinese language thing. But I don't know how to explain it to somebody who hasn't seen it. But in China, equally popular, I would say,
even more so.
Or even more so than actual chatting in text, or when I say text, I mean like Chinese characters, is audio messaging, whereas essentially you record very short voicemails for each other in a chat, and then
that's 5 seconds.
That's
10
5 seconds, and that's just like your sentence.
Yeah.
And then they listen to it and they record another one and send it back.
Yeah.
And why do you think that's more popular than
I think
text?
the older generation, this is my observation.
Oh, they don't know how, okay.
Well, they would know, but it's difficult for them to type on a smaller screen.
Yeah. And
And-
Chinese is complicated to type. It's
Yeah, so for the fellow Americans who think Chinese is too difficult,
Yeah, that's me.
you're right, because you can never understand 5,000 years
Of culture?
Yeah. No, the clueless. But no, I mean, yeah, I think the older generation really welcomed the voice messaging feature. And I use it using
trust
with
me,
my
I
parents
know.
like all the time.
Yeah. Well, the confusing thing to me,
Yeah.
this is something that maybe there is an analog in English. If there is, I don't know what it is a lot of times when I see you doing it, it's in real time. So you could just call the person and talk to them.
Yeah.
But you're both sitting there recording.
But it's still a text message. You could wait for a minute.
Okay,
You could be
I guess
cooking.
that's
You could be
true.
doing. It's still in the form of text messaging, which means you choose when to reply.
That's true.
Obviously, it's got a back and forth, and I do enjoy it sometimes because I think, like we joke that it's really hard to be sarcastic in
It is.
texting.
It is,
right.
yeah.
And if you are actually talking to someone, using the voice message, you hear their voice. It's sort of a different experience. But anyways, so bring it back. Bring it back in is that I think this had made WeChat a lot popular and made it a lot easier for the older generation who were not so tech savvy to start using WeChat a lot more.
Were they the first person to come up with a sort of audio chatting?
I don't know if they're the ones who invented it,
But
it was a feature that was very easy to use in WeChat very early on. And obviously, iMessage today, for example, if you use an iPhone, you could totally do that.
Yeah.
But I've just never done that.
So WeChat took over payment in China, essentially. So
Yeah.
they've basically taken over banking and credit cards. They're not the only provider,
There's
but
Alibaba, who's
they're the biggest fish,
yeah.
right?
Can I tell you something that's like I think
Sure.
maybe the American audience might, because I heard this and I thought that was interesting. So Alibaba, is that what you would know? That's the name I should refer them as, Alibaba.
Yeah, but you might
The
have
Chinese
to,
company.
but you might have to for what they're like Chinese Amazon, eBay.
You could say they're the Chinese Amazon and eBay together.
Okay.
Oh, sure, yeah. They're a big e-commerce solution provider in China, and now they're doing cloud solutions and all this stuff. So they're another internet giant in China. So Tencent is a company, Alibaba is another company. And when Tencent had released its red envelope feature, the CEO of Alibaba at the time, Jack Ma, so Alibaba has its own e-commerce platform. It has its own financial, like e-wallet online payment system. So, and they're the biggest competitor of WeChat Pay. Jack Ma had said when WeChat had released its red envelope feature, that day was like the Pearl Harbor Day to America, as in like, so Alibaba is America in this case.
Yeah.
Right? And when its competitor had released this major feature that had brought
because Alibaba is huge and they have warehouses and delivery drivers and all these, they're their whole empire. And Tencent and WeChat just this chat program, right?
It was, yeah. Back then, it was just this little chat program.
And then he's like,
he's like,
crap.
I mean, it's fair to say that the red envelope feature had launched WeChat on its success trajectory, right? So that was a Pearl Harbor Day for Alibaba, where this battle had started.
Yeah.
This war had started. So it was a competitive environment back in China, even so, right? So it's not fair to say they just came out and was a success immediately.
At this point, though.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. So they control chat and email essentially. They control payments for the most part. It's also its own app store. If you're a local electricity provider, you have your WeChat page. People go to it. You're like, if there's some app associated with it, they can download the app for you through that page. They do their payments through there. So it's really a complete package.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I just wanted to look it up because I was wondering how like the App Store aspect of it, the platform aspect of it. Apparently, in 2017, so the number will be a lot bigger today. Back in 2017, the daily active user for the App Store is 300 million.
Yeah.
So that's you know.
So that's one. That's that's a quarter.
That's
of China.
1/5 of Chinese
That's
population.
the entirety of America. Yeah. WeChat at this point has become. It's almost less like an app and more like an operating system.
Oh yeah.
So we basically talked about what it is, how it's gotten so huge, all the things that it does. So now let's talk about, I guess, some of the pros and cons of having this monolith control everything. So I would say I'll start off by saying some of the pros. Allow me to white explain this for a moment. Is that if you're a upstanding Chinese citizen in good standing with the government, it makes your life very easy. And I would say much more streamlined than
convenient.
Yeah, much more streamlined and convenient than the app ecosystem does in the US.
Oh yeah.
Because, you have one app, you can get things like ride shares, food delivery, e-commerce, directions, right? Don't they have maps?
Talk to your friends, talk to your family.
Talk to your family, send money.
Get radio, get your podcast.
Get your podcast,
yeah.
Do business, all through one account, all through one payment system. And it's all through, one, log. It's all very convenient, right?
Yeah.
And it even allows
Can't deny that.
You can buy train tickets through it.
Oh yeah.
Right. You public transportation, anything, right? Basically almost anything.
Or aspects of your life.
It's hard to just to find examples of things you cannot do through WeChat.
Obviously to be fair, there are other apps that do things, right? Like Alibaba hasn't replaced it, although the payments aspect, I would say it's sort of
what's the Chinese Uber equivalent? Dada?
Didi Dachi. Yeah, it has its own app too, but you would do it through WeChat as well, because WeChat has its app store, and Didi Dachi will have its app on the WeChat platform, right? And like there's a podcast platform called Himalaya, and that's like where you get your Chinese podcasts, but it would have an entrance from the WeChat app as well, even though itself is another platform.
Yes.
But yeah, it touches every aspect of your life. I think
so.
That's
If
fair
you're
to say.
So again, if you're a upstanding, by the CCP's definition of upstanding, Chinese citizen in good standing, and you don't really care too much about the details, the whole ecosystem makes your life very simple. What do you mean the details?
Where your data goes?
Right? Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I think I don't want to underestimate, or I don't want to downplay the fact that
how much convenience it's brought people.
If you do not care about some of the kind of scary questions, the sort of the scary questions about it, that you come to the US and or Europe, right? And you look at some of the ways things are set up and you go like, this is really archaic. Like why are things so complicated, right?
Yeah, no, it saves people time. People have launched their careers based on this platform. It's easier for small businesses to get around sometimes.
So now let's talk about the problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the problems?
Well,
I'm not aware of any.
Well, so I
know.
as an American, as a red-blooded American, I obviously have some concerns. But as a daughter of China, what would you say your
That's the first time I've been called that.
A daughter, a comrade of China. What are your concerns with the monolith that is WeChat?
So the big picture things, right? Obviously is privacy and surveillance, meaning that every chat that you go through, WeChat, Tencent, the company, has this giant database of everything that you do. You know, where you took a taxi to, when did you take a taxi, what did you buy, you know, where have you been, and who are you talking to, and what are you talking about, which blogs are you subscribed to. They have a database of all these. So in order to get information on that, and let me say, so Tencent, so like all other Chinese internet giants today, these companies all have a party office, party branch.
Communist Party branch.
Communist.
Not just
when we say party branch, I mean like
not just a fun
not
time.
for the birthdays and
yeah.
and the end of the year celebrations. No, the Communist Party, the Chinese government party branch, right?
There's a difference between being Chinese and being a member of the Communist Party. Communist
not
Party,
everyone is a party member.
You have to join. You can join the party politically and still work at a company, right? Work at a regular company.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think it's 3. If you have more than 3 party members working at a company, they're legally required to
have a party branch.
Yeah, to form a cell.
Yeah.
And then do what the party wants, right? And then promote the interests of the Communist Party. Yes. So basically, any company in China of a certain size is going to have at least 3 people that are card-carrying party members, right? And
I don't know if they actually have cards.
Well, you know,
but it's a saying.
Yeah, it's a saying in the U.S. I guess it's not in China.
Yeah.
So, Tencent, every large Chinese company has a party office where they promote whatever the Communist Party needs of them.
Yeah. So it's not a secret in China or else where the Chinese government has direct or indirect access to these databases. And what you do, obviously, the official line is that your internet activities, behaviors must be within the Chinese law.
Yes. And
it sounds reasonable, right? No problem.
Well, I will say, though, for an example, just one thing, which I don't know if we really touched about is WeChat. Mm-hmm. If you have payments, it means it's linked to your real account, real identity, right?
Yes.
So
so you have a Chinese ID card?
It's not
Everyone
anonymous.
has a Chinese ID card.
Yeah.
And it's got a number. Mm-hmm. That's unique to you, like social security card numbers to Americans. And your WeChat is based off your real name, your real identity, your real bank account. There's no question who you are.
Yes.
It's unlike Facebook, let's say.
And I guess I want to, because we're going to be talking about some of these things, and I think the kind of reflex is to be like, oh yeah, in the US though, Google knows everything about you, Facebook knows everything about you, et cetera, which is true to an extent, but those are all different companies. And they each know a portion of you, right? They don't necessarily know everything about you, right? Google doesn't necessarily know your bank balance, right? And if the federal government wants to know those things, for the most part, they
jump through some hoops.
They have to jump through some hoops. They have to do warrants. They have to do things, right?
Doesn't mean that they cannot, but it
doesn't mean that they cannot. It's just not with the CCP and this data we talk about them having access to. It's literally like they have a log on and they can just look at it when they want to.
It's at their fingertips.
It's at their fingertips.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this is no secret. This is, I think we're not saying something that no one knows, and this is not a breakthrough of news. Everyone knows in China or abroad.
Yes.
And I think it's fair to say that whatever you do in WeChat is under surveillance.
Yeah. And
is that the right word?
Yeah. And obviously it's not like they're reading everything all of the time because, that's too difficult.
Yes.
But
too much of it. Too many of us. Yeah.
If you have WeChat either in China or abroad, they are scanning these things and they are looking for keywords and they are censoring things and they are essentially acting as an arm.
Are we talking about censorship in WeChat already?
Well, we can talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
But they are acting as an arm of the CCP and using that data for their own interests, and they make no
they're not hiding it.
Yeah, they're not hiding it.
Yeah, it's within the law that they must do these things, you could say.
Yeah.
So, that's just how we do things.
Yeah.
So that's obviously privacy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big concern, right? Any other concerns? I don't know. But I will say, being a Chinese national living abroad, I remember that 5-6 years ago, I was able to use the WeChat Pay, it's called WePay feature, without having a Chinese bank account. I could use my Visa credit card and buy things and ship them to America, or I could send my cousins a red envelope during Chinese New Year.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past few years, it's the restrictions has tightened. And so anyone today, I believe, without a Chinese bank account, you would not be able to even use WeChat Pay. You will not be able to obviously receive money, pay money, anything like that.
Yeah.
So really today I only use WeChat to like talk to people. That's the only function. And I read some Chinese blogs on it. But it's not that, yeah, like you said, I don't know.
And why do you think they have required?
Well, this goes back to when we were talking about how TikTok is major in America today.
Mm-hmm.
And WeChat, not Americans don't use it, right? The Chinese diaspora uses it. And obviously people in China uses it.
Yeah.
I think there was an effort to only allow people that are Chinese citizens to use it.
Okay.
Or that you sort of have to enter the system. You sort of have to let them know who you are. You can't just be anonymous on the system and use it and take the benefits of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So obviously today, and now I'm like, oh, if I go back to China today, how would I use WeChat Pay, right? I would have to, I don't know, get my cousin's bank account or something, have them link it to my account.
It's almost
and
like
have them pay for me and pay them back. And I don't know if it will work because obviously that's their name.
Yeah.
And my WeChat is my name. And it has my ID number on it, and that theirs have their ID number on it.
It's almost like your digital citizenship.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I, as the Chinese diaspora, don't feel very welcomed, right?
Yeah.
Personally, by the system anymore. But this was a different feeling of 5-6 years ago. I did feel like it had brought me a lot of convenience.
Well,
but today, not so much.
So if you've ever been to, and I don't know, maybe other places in the U.S. are like this too, or abroad, but there are places in the U.S. that do accept WeChat Pay.
WePay
so on the West Coast, and they're typically
East Coast, West Coast. Yeah.
Any place that has a lot of Chinese nationals, so around probably colleges, and like luxury malls and things. WePay. But why do you think Chinese government, the CCP, pressured WeChat to kind of bring it in-house, to not have possibly like foreigners and other people on WeChat?
Well, I would say if WeChat was a pure business entity, like Facebook would love to go to China today.
Yeah.
If the Chinese government had allowed it. Sorry, Facebook. But you know what I mean? It's purely from a capitalist business perspective. You want to expand. Why wouldn't you want the American market as WeChat? Why wouldn't you want the other markets? And I think it did. I think it had a real effort of reaching out. But this is our assumption, obviously. So if WeChat is now today sort of an unofficial arm of the governance in China, then it's not really a business entity anymore, is it?
No.
Then it's really a public service platform, let's say. And why would it open to foreigners or people who don't live in China, like, right? I'm not a foreigner, but I'm not I'm not a, what do you call it, like a resident today in China, right? So I don't know if people at Tencent who wants to do business abroad, I mean, I would guess they, you know, if they, back in the days, if they could have taken the American market, they could have taken the other markets, they would love to, because this is, why do you do a software? You know, why do you do it? Speaking of our jobs. But if you see this as, like I said, a branch of the Chinese government, then there's not really a question of whether you could expand abroad or not. There's not really a question whether you make it friendly to people who don't live in China or not. Yeah. Right? So that's what I think.
So that's interesting. So let's talk about a little bit. So we talked about, you know, the data collection. Yeah. And we can't know, right? The only people who really knows what the
people at Tencent. Yeah, and the government.
The breadth of that data and what the CCP does with it. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting. So Cherrie and I were talking about, what's the guy's name? The AI guy?
Li Kaifu.
Who's a AI researcher. And he's Western educated, but he set up his lab in China because he's
he was the top guy at Google.cn, Google China.
Okay.
And he was very popular in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And Microsoft and Google had a big lawsuit fighting over him for who he can work for. So Google China obviously got closed down. Yeah. And then but he worked for Microsoft in China for a while. But today his main focus is on AI research, and he has his own investment company in China. He has his own lab in China.
Yeah. Sorry, and the reason it's interesting is because the reason he went to China is because basically he
stayed in China.
The reason he stayed in China, basically, it's like in the US there's so many rules, and in Europe about privacy and data and all these things and what's ethical. And he's basically like, yeah, in China, the CCP, these companies, they'll give me whatever I want.
Well, he didn't.
Right?
He didn't say that.
I mean, but
And he didn't mention Europe or America. What he did say,
Uh,
I think this is an honest translation of what he said because the interview was in Chinese.
mhm.
He said, well, the amount of data and the types of data that are available in China,
Mhm.
just based on its population and the access to it, is non-comparable to anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So I think obviously there's two parts. So A, China has a big population that everyone is on a smartphone. So that naturally, not necessarily unethically, provides a lot of
Larger
data,
pool.
right? A larger pool.
Yeah.
But the second part, on like how readily available those data are,
Yeah.
I
Right?
think that's the part that raises people's brows.
Because it's not
Yeah.
like, okay, let's say, like whether or not you're going to do AI in the US or in China, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, in China you have 4 times the people. All right, that's a good start.
Yeah.
But it's also like, not only do you have the 4 times the people, but instead of just having like Google's data or Facebook's data or,
Yeah.
bank data
Yeah.
or the government's data,
Yeah.
the census data,
Yeah.
you have all of those datas essentially if you have a connection with the CCP
Yeah.
and, the companies that have to funnel data to the CCP.
Yeah. So how does he get those data? But I mean, I thought it was interesting because the way he said it, I thought he was honest.
Yeah.
I thought he wasn't hiding from, you know what I mean? He wasn't like, this is bad, I better hide it.
'Cause
He was
China
just
doesn't care.
honestly saying, I'm a scientist.
yeah.
I need these data to make my AI work.
Yeah.
And this is the future.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, Li Kai-fu, he's a brilliant scientist, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has very great professional achievements.
Mm-hmm.
But he also has the view where artificial intelligence is what's going to save humankind from ourselves. And I think, including myself, people would go, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of a double-edged sword.
Sort of an ends justify the means.
Yeah. So, but I mean, to someone like that, or to a belief system like that,
Yeah.
China today is the best place to be.
Yeah.
China, you know what I mean? So, what privacy? What
Yeah.
human rights? Because we're going to march through all that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get to a place where AI is going to be the dominant force and, I guess,
And
in
if-
their beliefs, save humankind from itself.
And if the AI says this or that ethnic group is a danger, then, hey, that's just what the AI came up with, right?
Yeah, who's to say the AI will be
Not racist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought there's a lot of cases where Microsoft or whoever, like these big tech companies, has trained AIs, and they came out and they would scrub the web for what's out there, and instantly it will become racist.
Yeah,
right?
No,
Wasn't that the
No, that's Microsoft.
yeah.
Microsoft Tay is the famous one.
Yeah.
Where it started immediately quoting that the Holocaust is a lie and
Yeah.
that, like 9/11 is an inside
And they had to
job.
turn it off. And they're like, this can't happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing the whole big picture, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we're just
Well,
Yeah.
So let's so we don't know exactly, the scale of the data and what the CCP is doing in it, but
yeah. But there's a lot of
and it is in no way a conspiracy theory or any sort of outlandish statement to say that wherever you are in the world,
yeah.
whatever you do on WeChat,
Yeah.
the CCP knows about it if they want to know about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it's not just even the surveillance part of it. It's not even just like if you go against the
Yeah.
big brother. But I think everyone in China today, including people I know, many people I know and people I've seen online, talk to online, they have the experience of they make a certain action on WeChat or even on Alibaba, right? And then immediately they get actual phone calls, like spam phone calls.
Okay.
It's sort of like, how Facebook has targeted ads,
Yeah.
right? You search something and then it could come out. You search for, I don't know, shoes, right? It would recommend you some shoes. That's what the ad companies are paying for.
Yeah.
In China, this will literally be your phone number that they get, right?
Because
they will actually call you right away.
Because you texted your mom and you're like, oh, I think you
In WeChat, probably.
on WeChat, but not
or
type,
if you
but
search for something on a different website.
yeah.
So it's not just that you don't even have to say anything anti-government.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be a dissident.
Yeah.
Just in your daily life, your data is not private.
Yes.
And if you just want to go on a life without spam calls, this system does not, I don't know, help you.
Well,
Yeah.
so let's talk now a little bit about censorship, which is the other part of it, which is, so obviously
If you
China.
are a dissident.
Yeah. So obviously China has the Great Firewall.
The Great Firewall, by the name of it, it blocks traffic in and out of China, Chinese internet. And when you are in China, not necessarily all your information is going to be scrubbed, scanned by the Great Firewall.
Yeah.
What would happen is that companies in China, or internet companies, your databases, your hosting companies, they are responsible for what data is on their platform. So you know how in America there's all these court battles, and I don't know if there's a conclusion to this day. I think it's still ongoing, that something that is posted on Twitter, is that Twitter's problem? Is that Twitter's responsibility? So it is, right? Is it today or no?
Oh, no, I'm saying agreeing with you is an issue.
Or like fake news. Like, is it Facebook or
Yes.
Twitter's place to decide what's truth? I think the current conclusion is that it's not.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And that protects them to a certain extent. But then there's people going like, but you're not just a public platform because you do tear down some things and you keep up other stuff.
Yeah.
So you are actively moderating it. And so it's like...
Yeah. So that's a constant battle in America to this day, right? I think it's going to keep going because... But in China...
Battle's over.
Well, I don't know if you've ever even begun.
Yeah.
So whatever's posted on WeChat or transmitted through WeChat or like, the Chinese Twitter platform Weibo, whatever is posted, the company will be on the hooks for it. You will get in trouble as the company. Obviously, the user will also get in trouble. The poster will, but you are responsible for it. So that gives companies like Tencent an incentive to scrub the data before it even reaches a point where the government needs to be involved.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, and that has an effect where... Because you don't know where the line is.
Oh, yeah. No,
I'm not saying everyone at Tencent loves to censor. Like, I mean, and there's a lot of people, there are whistleblowers who came out and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Right? But naturally what would happen is that the company will draw the line rather restrictively than what they may believe the government will tolerate. Yeah. Just so that they don't get in trouble. So, because why risk it? Yeah. So anyway, so that's, censorship for you.
Well, no, it's interesting. And I think people sometimes have a view that it's like Xi Jinping waking up every morning with his list of keywords and saying like what's allowed and what's not allowed. But the whole thing with the CCP
you underestimate how the machine works.
Where the CCP is purposefully vague. And this is for everything. This is a much broader topic that I want to do a whole episode on Chinese censorship, but because it's like, okay, like let's say you want to have a movie in China, right? China's like, we're only going to let in 30 foreign movies a year, right? So it's like, ooh, okay, well I want my movie.
Made that line,
right?
Just want to get that one in.
Mulan made that line, right? So you're like, okay, I want my movie to be in China. So it's like, okay, well, the Chinese government doesn't have an official thing that says no Chinese villains. Yeah. Chinese government has to be our friend. But it's like, if I put that in there, they'll probably accept it. Yeah. So, and that's from games and everything. So you have all of these companies inside and outside of China who are just falling over themselves to kiss the ring.
For the Chinese market.
And the CCP gets away with like not having to put it on a piece of paper somewhere exactly what they will allow and not allow. Yeah, that's
a very specific good example of it, right? But I mean, with all totalitarian government, obviously there's a line. Yeah, you clearly know, everyone knows there's a line you should not step on, but where that line is often blurry, because if they say where the line is, then they can operate within that line.
Oh yeah, know how far you can push it.
Yeah, but it's at the end of the day, the goal is so that you're scared.
Oh yeah,
so that you won't even do things that might come close to the line. Yeah, which from the government's perspective, it works better. Yeah, than you know what I mean. So
why don't you describe some of the ways that WeChat censors things?
So the things that they censor, texts are definitely censored, and they censor it by keywords. So if you say things like, if you mention Xi Jinping's name, right? For example, if you mention, I don't know, the Cultural Revolution, that would, that those words are on a list.
And what does it look like when you're being censored?
Well, sometimes you don't know, because when we say censor, we mean being blocked, right? We mean the message cannot go through. But obviously the other kind of censorship is that you send it, it goes through, they know you did it, and you're on some sort of a list. Yes. Right. That's more of
the pressure censorship. Okay. Where, right, you maybe send too many messages like that, you get invited down to the police station for tea.
Yeah. Well, so I'll say I'll say a personal example.
Okay.
So this is my personal chat. So it was a one-on-one chat with someone I know, and they sent me several messages. And it didn't make sense because one message sort of jumped to the next one.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make conversational sense to me. Does that make sense? So I was like, what were you meant to say?
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, I meant to say, like they sent me a screenshot. This, and they're like, what do you mean, like you don't understand what I said?
Yeah.
Because I think they sent me a screenshot because they sort of understood, oh, maybe something I sent was blocked.
Yeah.
And it just didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so let's say they sent me 3 messages. Only 2 of them made it through, and the middle one that had a sensitive word just disappeared.
Yeah.
But it didn't disappear on their screen. It disappeared on my screen, so I never even got it. So if they had not followed up with another like conversation, like with another comment on that same thread,
yes,
I would have never ever realized that was blocked, and the conversation would never happen. Does that make sense?
The intent is to just block things so people just move on.
Yeah,
right.
It's not to make martyrs out of people.
It's just like, but I mean, the news cycle in China, like it is in the U.S., is just at a hyper speed.
Yeah,
and if something has come up and it's inflammatory, and you just block it for a couple days. People just move on.
Yeah. That's the scary part of it, at least for me, because if they didn't follow up, I would never know it had happened. And they might think I didn't want to talk about it because I'm self-censoring.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or they might think I'm not interested. So that discussions stop happening.
Yes.
One of the little rebellious act that Google had done in China in against the censorship was that when Google did have to censor something, like the Google.cn, the Google Chinese version of Google, when they did have to censor something, instead of just hiding it and making it disappear and not even show up on the list, they will say some results has been censored according to local law.
Yeah.
And that was very damaging because you would search for something and you would know you're not seeing the whole truth.
Yeah.
And that got Google into a good amount of trouble with the Chinese government because they're like, "Why? No, we don't want that."
That got them banned
but
eventually.
for Google, yeah, I know. But for Google, one of the reasons got them banned, right? But for Google, it was like that was the bottom line. They had to at least tell people that you are being censored and we're censoring you. They they're like, so we have to censor people to stay in the Chinese government.
Yeah.
But the least we can do, I guess,
is tell them
they're like, this is our bottom line.
Yeah.
We gotta tell people they're being censored.
Yeah.
And what happens next, we don't know. But at least they know, and we can sort of tell ourselves that we're doing no evil, I guess, right? But that was not okay with the Chinese government.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the same thing. So this message that's being censored, if I had known, if they go, oh, one message was blocked, then I would wonder what that message was.
Or you might be annoyed.
Yeah. I bet you these messages don't even get to the government first, obviously, because Tencent goes, no, this is not good.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know if they have their own list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they get a list from the Chinese government daily.
Yeah.
Maybe it's probably a combination of, of both, right? They maintain something and the government has its own lines.
But it's convenient for the Communist Party to have this monolith because then it's easy to keep in line. Right?
Yeah, and because the government doesn't even have to be bothered with it.
Yeah.
Unless it gets to a place where the government
Tencent
squash this down.
It.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the ban.
Give me one more example.
What's the one more example?
Of the censorship.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a private chat. And private chats usually don't have big consequences. Like it would just, if there's a keyword, it would just get blocked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just quietly, just like that, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk in groups such as like more than 100 people, if you're talking, because WeChat groups are a very common thing. This is how people talk. It's sort of like a public space, really.
Okay.
For a company, for a community, for
honestly, I think it's interesting because I think chat rooms were kind of gone for a while in the U.S. public discourse, but it's sort of like a Discord channel.
Oh yeah, it's like
right?
a Discord channel. Yeah, you could say that. If you talk in those groups, the weight of your words is obviously a lot heavier than the weight to a one-on-one chat.
Because 100 people could see it, or
100 people can see
1,000 people could see it.
Yeah, and if you are to send messages in those channels, categorized as spreading a message.
Okay.
Right. So if I talk to someone one-on-one, that's not if they really wanted to get you, you are still spreading it.
Yeah.
But to give it to send a message in a group of 100 people, that's gonna put you on some sort of a radar.
Okay.
Right, and especially if you say things, so that definitely gets you higher on the list of tighter sort of censorship.
Yeah.
Then versus if it's a private chat, the doctor who I think Western media all reported on, Li Wenliang, this doctor in Wuhan, right? And that had first, like, we call him a whistleblower. But he sent a warning message to a group of doctors that, you know, like his medical school, like, friends. And he sort of sent this message about, like, this is a new kind of virus. This is different from SARS. It's not SARS. And that had got him and several other doctors who also sent this through groups on a list, right? And that you should Google him if you want to know what happens next. But obviously that carries a different weight than if he just sent it to one person.
Yeah. So let's talk now about the ban, right? And, you know, obviously it's happening on Sunday, the day this episode's going to go out. So it's still a bit in the air what exactly it's going to look like. But at the minimum, what they've said is you're not going to be able to download it from the app stores anymore. And you're not going to be able to do send U.S. banks are not going to be allowed to send payments to it. And also it can't be hosted on, like, U.S. servers. So first let's talk about, and this is very much opinion, Cherrie and I have no impact in anything political. We're just like two, I don't know, people who are just kind of watching this.
Yeah.
Do you think that it is a aggressive move by the United States, or do you think it's tit for tat?
Yeah. So I have a very complicated feeling about this. On my Chinese social media, a lot of people are mocking the American government and are sort of saying, see how this is what, you know, they don't want us to, you know, this is why they're our enemy, right? They want to. And so I'll say two things. One is, even though I'm a daily user of the WeChat program, I talk to most Chinese people I know on this program, right? And I talk to my parents, I talk to my family on this program, on this app. But I also remember the days where I could get on Google. Yeah. And I had Gmail.
Well, actually, let's take a step back. Because people might not know, but almost every single major American internet services company is banned in China. Right?
Google's banned,
Facebook's
Twitter's banned. Of course, Facebook's banned.
YouTube's banned.
YouTube is banned, and if you're like New York Times, you're most of the time banned. And
is Discord banned? I think Discord's probably banned too. I don't know. But so all of these things have been banned for a long time. Yeah. And it wasn't for any reason other than that they were too difficult for the CCP to control, basically.
I think it could be a combination of too difficult to control.
Or they wanted,
and that it would provide an opportunity for the Chinese internet companies. Obviously, if you say fair market, right? Yeah. Why should you not let them compete fairly? But I mean, like China was a poor country, you know, that you go, well, we want our Chinese companies to succeed. Yeah. And we can do it with Facebook here. They're already this giant company, and they're so much more advanced in every way. But I mean, I think it was a combination. I'm not saying it's right or wrong they did it, but I think it was a combination of both the lack of control, the difficulty to control them, and companies to grow.
So as you were saying that, you know, you used to be able to use these apps. So one of the reasons why banning WeChat is such a big deal, or kind of soft banning at this point, is because China has banned all the alternatives to talk to people in China, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no other easy way to talk to the people in China.
Well, I realized that I could still use iMessage to talk to my parents, because obviously, I mean, to talk about banning WeChat and TikTok has been going on for at least a couple months. Yeah. So there has been multiple waves of panic in my life, but not my life specifically, because I always sort of understood that they cannot ban it from the people who already own it. Yeah. The American government,
can't delete
better
it off
or
your
worse,
phone.
cannot delete an app that you have on your phone, right? Well, I guess for better, not for worse. I'm sorry. So I sort of didn't panic. But I mean, obviously, if you hear that an app is going to be banned, then you go, I can never use it anymore. So I had several waves of panic from my friends and family who goes, oh, how are we going to contact you? So I've discovered that I could still use iMessage to talk to my parents and most other people I know if they had an iPhone. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess if they didn't have an iPhone, I can't really send text messages, right? So I'll have to figure out another way, unless they have Telegram, which is also banned in China, or they have WhatsApp, which is also banned in China. So it's it would be difficult.
And I think probably the reason they haven't banned iMessage is, or iChat. Sorry, I don't use Apple, Cherrie. I sound like a real Luddite here. iMessage is that it's probably not that big of a threat, because it's just like single person, like point to point.
Oh yeah, the community aspect of what WeChat is I think the reason why it needs to be so heavily
regulated.
Yeah.
So one could argue that this is, I mean, the U.S. banning these apps is not anything that China is not, doing all the time. Now, I would maybe say that maybe the U.S. shouldn't be trying to just get on, use China's tactics.
When they go low, do we go high?
No, we go low too.
I love Michelle Obama, by the way.
Yeah.
But, okay, but I mean, yeah, so it's sort of, it's like, well, it's their playbook. Why can't America use it? But then if you use it, that means you're the same, right? So that's the ultimate argument. You go, do you want to be the same as as the Chinese government? Obviously, America prides itself for not being the same as it.
But I mean, I think, that's sort of the end of, that's sort of the kind of ultimate argument of like, do you punch fascists and Nazis in the face?
Yeah, I know.
Because it's like, if they're not going to play by the rules, like what would happen
if...
we
have to play by the rules?
Yeah, what would happen if WeChat became the default payment system in America, right?
Well, I don't think it would.
But let's say it did, right? Let's say it became the default social media payment system in a country outside of China. Well, now all of China's rules about what you can and can't talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be imposed on.
It's going to be imposed on that country.
I mean, it's already happening in TikTok. It's got all these.
Oh yeah, right.
Like all these Xinjiang, talks that's banned.
Yeah.
Right. So and it's taken down very quickly if there is a video about
even though it's in the U.S. Right.
Even though it's about even though it's in the U.S.
Whether or not it should be banned. So I'm gonna go on record as a person on a podcast.
We're all waiting for your opinion. I know
everybody's holding out.
Yeah.
I think that as long as WeChat is essentially, as we sort of discussed, an extension of the Chinese state and soft power, and it's sort of like a digital citizenship.
You think it should be?
I kind of think it should be banned in the U.S. And TikTok, whatever, right? I mean, I don't really care.
As long as TikTok doesn't grow into this ecosystem.
Yeah, then I think it's fine, right? I mean, whatever, right? Don't do TikTok videos of top secret information if you're in the military.
Well, I think there are several major blockers for WeChat, even nationally, to grow in other countries other than China because of the assistance that it has gotten from the Chinese government. Does that make sense? So like in the US, in like Apple Pay, how Apple Pay still does not achieve the same success in like in America, like WeChat in
They
China.
had to introduce an Apple Pay credit card because they couldn't.
I know it has to. It's sort of like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, WeChat would have to wrestle with banks.
Yeah.
It would have to wrestle with
banks that have U.S. reporting standards.
Oh yes, right. And it would have to wrestle with all these other entities, and not sometimes controlled by the American government. Yeah. Sometimes not. Right. The American government has to wrestle with these entities. Yeah. Right. So
the CCP doesn't have to wrestle with anyone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we all have to wrestle with it.
They brought a gun to the wrestling fight.
Exactly. There's no wrestling fight to begin with, but there's no arena. You know what I mean? But I mean, so even on payment alone, like one aspect of what WeChat is, it would meet a lot of resistance in America or another market. Yeah. Right. So I would say, but yes, I understand your point of like WeChat has this ambition of becoming this giant ecosystem anywhere it goes. Yeah. And if from that perspective, TikTok, as much as attention grabbing, addicting it is, it's still at least today, I think it's still a social media platform. And obviously it has algorithms to figure out what's popular and what's not. Yeah. But that's different from WeChat. From WeChat, yeah.
So I guess moving forward, we'll see what happens Sunday, but presumably you can't get it from app stores anymore. You'll have to sideload it if you want it. I think
if you haven't had it and you wanted it.
Yeah, I think based on sort of free speech in the United States, they can't stop you from getting an app and sending your data to China if you want to. Yeah. They can just make it difficult.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I was thinking, like my parents in America do that. Does that mean they can't use WeChat? I think they still can because they will bring a phone from China that uses the internet, right? And obviously the aspect of not allowing American servers to host anything WeChat related could make my service slower. Yeah. And more painful.
I mean, but you don't use the payment anyway. So.
I will say that I'm not allowed to use the payment anyways, right? Yeah. So as someone who is, not to make too much of an importance of myself, but sort of living in between this wrestling of the two superpower of the world, right? Like just like any other like Chinese citizens living in America, the Chinese diaspora, I guess. Yeah. And or any Americans or Westerners living in China, you're sort of in between, right? Oh, yeah. So this would, I mean,
when we were in China last time, your parents just gave us a phone.
I know. That's the only way for us to get around. Like, there's just no other way.
Right, with
Yeah.
WeChat installed on it, because it's like, well, how else are we supposed to get around, right?
Yeah, also, obviously, when you make payments, no one checks if you're the owner of that phone. It just does. If you steal a phone and you can unlock it, the WeChat wallet is yours. Like,
Yeah.
I think now, like, they have like face recognition on.
Of course they do, Cherrie.
Yeah.
They gotta know who you
It's
are.
for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But bitterly as I may be, thinking that it's already very inconvenient for me to use WeChat abroad.
But I would argue that, I mean, obviously, you know, as you said, China has made the CCP essentially has made these decisions, possibly for control, possibly to support local industries.
Uh-huh.
The CCP are the ones that made it difficult to communicate with people in China, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
the ones who've made it so, well, if you want to talk to people in China, you have
They
to
haven't.
use...
Only if the world accepts
Yeah.
the way we do things,
Only
then
if the
what is there
world-
to worry? You know,
Only
yeah,
if the
I
world
know. I
accepted
know.
Xi Jinping and the
Yeah,
CCP.
no, I know. I was kidding, everyone.
Yeah.
So I was kidding. So anyhow, what the Chinese government has done back in the days to block these U.S. services
Mm-hmm.
had already, you know, caused great inconvenience in my life back then.
Yeah.
And again, not to sound dramatic, I know it's not like I was starving or anything, but you know, as a internet user, a netizen, I guess, right? I sort of had to already go through it once. And obviously I don't want to go through it again because that just means the world is blocked, you know, separated even more so.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. What do? You, like you said, you know, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Are you not supposed to do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you supposed to just
ignore it?
Ignore it and, you know, stay high? Not stay high, but you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
stand on the moral high ground
Mm-hmm.
and just take it? I don't know. Obviously, well, you're not taking it, so that's
Yeah.
great, and, you know, it's going to happen. But,
Yeah.
I'm not happy that it's happening.
So I am not a fan of this administration, but I don't think these sort of moves that are happening in the world are with dealing with China are purely a U.S. thing. I mean, Europe is going through similar kind of issues on how closely.
India banned
India
banned WeChat. Or did it ban WeChat or
I know
TikTok?
it banned TikTok. It might have.
Okay.
It probably banned WeChat too.
This year. Yeah, they
Yeah.
did it this year.
So I mean, it's not necessarily just a U.S. thing. It's not necessarily just like a Trump administration or Republican thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody was sort of waiting and thinking like, okay, you know, at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna kind of lower the firewall, and we're gonna get back in there. We're gonna make some money. And
The
now,
wishy-washy.
yeah.
Sorry.
And then I think now,
The hamburger is going to bring freedom to the whole world.
right? Yeah, hamburgers and blue jeans and rock and roll.
Yeah.
But I think people are kind of thinking like, you know, I don't know, like what do we gain by allowing these apps in this sort of zero-sum game of global power? What do we gain by letting China's apps into our countries when China blocks all our apps? And
Yeah. And you know what's worse to me personally?
what's worse to you?
Because everyone's like just waiting on the edge of their seat.
We are, Cherrie.
I know. So WeChat has this giant monster, right?
Yeah.
Giant ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, so we both work in tech.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to say that?
Okay,
So we both work in tech. And a lot of things that WeChat has done has gotten me like, oh, wow. You know, like they did that. Sort of in a very like fancy way.
Oh,
or,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
very neat or this and that.
Just because
Yeah.
they're this colossus doesn't mean they can't also be competent.
Oh, yeah. No, I think they're also like being able to censor all the much data.
Yeah.
That's a very competent thing to do. 'Cause it's
Facebook
hard to
can't
go
figure out how to deal with fake news.
No, yeah.
WeChat has already determined what the news are.
When there's no limit to what you are allowed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, spread your wings, which they did. So, and obviously the bitter part is that even though it sort of proves, because I think when I was growing up, there was always this need to prove ourselves. China,
Mm-hmm.
in China, like there's always this need to prove ourselves on the international stage.
Yeah.
Where there's always this need, this urge to go, oh yeah, we can be creative.
Yeah.
You know, oh, we can be modern. We just need to catch up because we've had some long struggles.
Yeah.
Which, if you listen to the next episode, you will
You'll
get to
hear
know some of it.
Yeah.
So, as proud sometimes as I want to be a Chinese national,
Yeah.
sometimes I want to be like, you know, this is great, right? Like, look at me.
Yeah.
Me, when I say me, I mean like China. You know.
Yeah.
So, because I'm supposed to be proud of my the achievements of things, you know, from this land that
Yeah.
I can identify with. But then WeChat turns into this giant censorship house.
Surveillance, censorship, control.
House. Yeah. And those brilliant things are still there. They're still functioning every day.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, just how shitty it is
Yeah.
to have it be used that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just, I mean, being able to use WeChat or not,
Yeah.
I was very happy that WeChat was a thing and how they did it so competently. And I was like, the red envelope, how they did it like so according to the Chinese culture, and had everyone just understood it immediately and be so natural to use it.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's always like the localization thing of China, right? Like how a Western company, sometimes it would be hard to succeed in China immediately because they wouldn't understand the user behavior, the user culture. So when a Chinese software does it very well, and then turns around and uses it to, I don't know, do evil, you know, to quote Google.
Yeah. That's
just
not their motto anymore, Google's.
It's not?
No.
What is it now?
I don't think they have one.
No, they must.
It's not do no evil.
Let me see. Google
motto. Well, while Cherrie looks that up, hopefully that was interesting to people.
In 2015, it was changed to do the right thing instead of don't be evil.
Well, I mean, you know, if you're living in a country with a certain regime, doing the right thing might be doing evil. It's very convenient.
I think it's still okay. So "don't be evil" is still a phrase used in Google's corporate code of conduct.
Okay.
But it was formally as a motto.
Oh. Okay.
Today the motto is instead "do the right thing."
Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So hopefully this was interesting to people. We're having another full episode. Well, this is probably going to end up being pretty long, but a kind of actual like
no small chat is
an actual like
chat.
Researched long episode next weekend. So yeah, I think we're going to probably sprinkle in some of these more current event ones alongside the history ones, because I mean, both the past and the present, and theoretically the future, all have Chinese characteristics. So right. So anyway, thank you for listening. I'm Natalie.
I'm Cherrie.
And have a nice day.
See you next time.